Have you ever had a dream so big it scared you? You could picture yourself successful, achieving your goals, living your best life, free from self-doubt. But then, instead of taking action, you hesitated. "I'll start tomorrow," you said. But tomorrow turned into next week, then next month, and before you knew it, years had passed, and you were still in the same place. Why does this happen? It's because success isn't just about having big dreams. It's about overcoming procrastination, building momentum, and taking small, consistent steps forward. This is the story of Tortoise, a dreamer stuck in the cycle of laziness, overthinking, and self-doubt. But by the end of this journey, he will uncover the secret to breaking free. And so will you. Tortoise had a dream, a bold, impossible dream. He wanted to be the fastest creature in the jungle. He could see it so clearly. The moment he crossed the finish line, the crowd erupting in cheers, animals chanting his name. Even Hare, the arrogant speedster, would bow in admiration. It wasn't just a passing thought. It was an obsession. But there was just one problem. That's all it was, a dream. Every morning, Tortoise would wake up, stare at the sky, and tell himself, "I'll start tomorrow." But tomorrow never came. Instead, he wasted his time sitting by the riverbank, watching the water flow, lost in overthinking. "I need the perfect plan," he told himself. "Maybe I should ask Owl for advice first. What if I fail? Maybe next week would be better." And so he did nothing. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Meanwhile, other animals were training every day. Hare practiced his speed, getting faster and faster. Monkey swung through trees, sharpening his agility. Even Snail, yes, Snail was making an effort to improve his pace. But Tortoise, he remained stuck. He wanted to improve life, to achieve success, but he just couldn't get himself to take the first step. Tortoise was trapped in procrastination, the silent killer of dreams. He convinced himself he needed to wait for the perfect moment. But the truth is, the perfect moment doesn't exist. Success doesn't happen in one giant leap. It happens through daily improvement, through small, consistent actions. But like so many of us, Tortoise didn't understand that. He thought success was something that happened all at once, that he needed to transform overnight. This is what psychologists call the perfectionism trap. When you refuse to start something because you believe it has to be perfect from day one. The result: you do nothing. You stay stuck in self-doubt, convincing yourself that you'll take action when you feel ready. But readiness never comes. And so, day after day, Tortoise made excuses. "I need more time to prepare. What if I fail? I don't want to embarrass myself. Maybe I'll wake up motivated tomorrow." But tomorrow never came. One morning, as Tortoise lay under a shady tree, he saw Hare zip past him. A cloud of dust kicked up in the air. Hare stopped, looked back, and smirked. "Still sitting around? You'll never get anywhere like that." Tortoise scowled but said nothing. Hare didn't understand. It wasn't that Tortoise didn't want to train. It was that he couldn't get started. He was trapped in self-doubt, paralyzed by his own thoughts. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if all this effort is for nothing? And the more he thought about it, the worse it got. This is what overthinking does. It doesn't help you prepare, it keeps you stuck. Overthinking is the enemy of productivity. Convinces you that you need more time, that you need to feel motivated, that you need everything to be perfect before you take action. But the truth is, motivation doesn't come before action, it comes after. The secret to overcoming procrastination isn't waiting for motivation to strike. It's taking the first step even when you don't feel ready. That evening, as the sun painted the sky orange, Owl landed beside Tortoise. He watched him in silence for a long time before speaking. "You dream of speed, but your feet never move." Tortoise sighed. "I want to be fast, but training feels overwhelming. I don't know where to start." Owl tilted his head. "Too much? Or just uncomfortable?" Tortoise hesitated. "Both, I guess." Owl nodded. "You see the mountain in front of you and think you have to climb it all at once. But success isn't about taking one giant leap. It's about taking small steps, every single day. Tortoise blinked. Small steps. Owl smiled. Yes, small consistent steps. Success is not about waiting for the perfect moment. It's about starting even when you don't feel ready. If you wait for motivation, you will never begin. If you wait for perfect conditions, you will stay stuck. The key is to take action first and let motivation follow. Tortoise frowned. That doesn't seem like it would work. Owl chuckled. That's why so many fail. They believe success happens in a single life-changing moment. But real progress happens slowly over time. The hardest part is simply starting. And once you start, momentum takes over. That night, Tortoise lay awake, Owl's words ringing in his head. One step at a time. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. And for the first time, he saw the truth. Success wasn't about making one grand leap. It was about daily improvement, about persistence, about showing up every day. Even when it was hard. Tortoise realized that he had wasted months waiting for the right moment. But the right moment was now. If he wanted to achieve his goals, he had to take action. No more excuses. No more waiting. Just one small step forward. Tortoise didn't suddenly become the fastest creature in the jungle overnight. That would come later. For now, the most important thing was that he had made a decision. He would no longer be controlled by fear. He would no longer let procrastination hold him back. He would no longer wait for motivation to magically appear. Instead, he would take small daily steps toward his goal. And with that, everything changed. Have you ever told yourself, "I'll start tomorrow," only to realize that tomorrow never comes? You want to be productive, you want to change, but something always holds you back. Whether it is self-doubt, overthinking, or the fear of failure. The truth is, success isn't about waiting for the perfect moment. It's about taking action, even when you don't feel ready. By the end of this story, you'll have the exact strategy to overcome procrastination, break free from self-doubt, and start making real progress toward your goals. The morning after his conversation with Owl, Tortoise woke up feeling different. Something had shifted inside him. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just thinking about success. He was ready to do something about it. But then, a familiar voice whispered in his mind. What if you fail? What if it's too hard? What if everyone laughs at you? Tortoise sighed. The self-doubt was still there. He had spent so long making excuses, trapped in a cycle of procrastination and overthinking, that taking action now felt terrifying. But then, he remembered Owl's words. Success isn't about waiting for the perfect moment. It's about taking small daily steps. It wasn't about becoming the fastest in the jungle overnight. It was about getting just a little better each day. Tortoise took a deep breath. Just one step, he told himself. And so he did. That morning, Tortoise didn't set out to outrun Hare. He didn't try to prove himself to the jungle. He simply walked a little faster than usual. First, it felt uncomfortable. His legs were stiff. His body sluggish from years of inactivity. He wasn't used to this. But he kept going, one step at a time. It wasn't much, but it was something. And something was better than nothing. The next day he did the same thing. And the day after that. Slowly, a pattern began to emerge. He wasn't thinking about the entire race anymore. He wasn't overwhelmed by the idea of competing with Hare. All he focused on was what he could do today. And that, more than anything, was the secret to self-improvement. Success isn't about making one giant leap. It's about making progress, no matter how small. The truth is, most people never take that first step. They tell themselves they'll start when they feel ready. But readiness never comes. This is because of a psychological phenomenon known as the action versus motivation loop. Most people think they need motivation first before they can take action. They believe that once they feel inspired, they'll finally be productive. But that's not how it works. Motivation doesn't come before action, it comes after. Once you take that first step, even if it's small, your brain starts recognizing progress. That progress builds momentum, and that momentum creates motivation. This is why starting, even when you don't feel like it, is the most powerful thing you can do. Tortoise didn't feel ready, but he started anyway. And within days, something incredible happened. First, every step felt like a struggle. His muscles ached. His mind kept telling him to stop. But he kept going. 'Cause something amazing happens when you push through discomfort. What once felt difficult starts to feel normal. And what feels normal eventually feels easy. This is called the adaptation effect. When you repeatedly expose yourself to a challenge, your brain and body adapt to make it feel less overwhelming. At first, waking up early to train felt impossible for Tortoise. But after a few days, it became his new normal. After a week, he didn't even have to think about it anymore. It had become a habit. And that's when everything changed. One day, as Tortoise was training, Monkey swung down from the trees. "Whoa, you're actually moving." Monkey laughed. "Did someone light a fire under your shell?" Tortoise grinned. "Something like that." Monkey tilted his head. "I don't get it. Last time I saw you, you were stuck in the same spot. What changed?" Tortoise thought for a moment. Then he said, "I stopped waiting for motivation and just took action. One small step at a time." Monkey scratched his head. "That's it." Tortoise nodded. "That's it." As days turned into weeks, Tortoise realized something important. He had spent so much time obsessing over the end goal, becoming the fastest in the jungle, that he never actually took the steps to get there. Now he wasn't thinking about the finish line. He was thinking about the daily process. This shift in mindset was critical. Instead of thinking, "I have to win the race," he told himself, "I just have to train today." And because his goal was no longer overwhelming, he stopped procrastinating. This is one of the biggest secrets to discipline and goal achievement. Fall in love with the process, not the result. If you want to get in shape, focus on showing up at the gym, not losing 50 pounds overnight. If you want to start a business, focus on doing one small task today, not launching $1 million company instantly. If you want to learn a new skill, focus on practicing a little each day, not mastering it in a week. Success comes from daily improvement, not sudden transformations. And Tortoise had finally understood this. For the first time in his life, Tortoise believed in himself. Not because he was the fastest, not because he had achieved his goal, but because he had finally taken control of his actions. He had spent years waiting for external validation, waiting for the right moment, waiting for someone to push him forward. But now he was pushing himself. And that was the greatest victory of all. Because self-doubt only controls you when you let it. And procrastination only wins when you refuse to start. But the moment you take one small step forward, everything changes. Tortoise didn't become the fastest in the jungle overnight. But he had broken free from the cycle of laziness, procrastination, and self-doubt. And that was the real victory. Because once you take control of your own actions, once you stop waiting and start moving, nothing can stop you. Starting is easy. Keeping it going, that's the real challenge. How many times have you started something, working out, reading more, waking up early, only to lose motivation a few days later? You get excited at first, but then life happens. You miss one day, then two. Before you know it, you're right back where you started. Why does this happen? And more importantly, how do you stop it? Tortoise has finally broken free from procrastination. He started taking action. But the journey doesn't end there. Tortoise had done it. He had taken his first step. And then another. And another. For the first time in his life, he was making progress. But then, reality hit. The first few days were exciting. He felt energized. He felt unstoppable. But soon the excitement wore off. One morning he woke up, stretched his legs and groaned. His body ached. His motivation was low. He looked at the sun rising over the jungle and thought, maybe I'll take a rest day today. It was a small thought, just a whisper in his mind. But Tortoise knew what it meant. One rest day could turn into two. Two could turn into a week. And before he knew it, he'd be right back where he started. That terrified him. 'Cause the truth is, motivation fades. And when it does, most people quit. This is where so many people fail. They rely on motivation to carry them through. But motivation is like the wind, it comes and goes. It's strong one day and non-existent the next. If you depend on motivation, you will always struggle to stay consistent. So what's the solution? Discipline. Discipline is what keeps you going when motivation disappears. It's what separates the people who succeed from the people who start strong but never finish. And that's exactly what Tortoise was about to learn. That morning, as Tortoise sat by the river, staring at his reflection, Owl appeared. "You look troubled," Owl said. Tortoise sighed. "I don't feel like training today." Owl nodded. "And?" Tortoise blinked. "I don't know. Maybe I should take a break." Owl smiled. "Tell me, Tortoise. Who are you?" Tortoise frowned. "What do you mean?" Owl leaned in. "Are you a slow, lazy dreamer who never takes action? Or are you someone who is becoming faster every single day?" Tortoise hesitated. I want to be fast." "Then act like it," Owl said. "Because success isn't just about what you do. It's about who you believe you are." Tortoise tilted his head. "I don't understand." Owl smiled. "If you want to stay consistent, don't just build habits. Build an identity. Most people focus on outcomes. They say, I want to lose weight. I want to be successful. I want to be productive. But that's the wrong way to think about it. Instead, you must ask yourself, who do I need to become? For example, don't just say I want to lose weight. Say I am the kind of person who never skips a workout. Don't just say I want to be successful. Say I am the kind of person who takes action every day. Don't just say I want to be productive. Say I am the kind of person who focuses and works hard. When you see yourself as the type of person who takes action, you no longer have to rely on motivation. You do the work because that's who you are. And that's what Tortoise needed to understand. That day, Tortoise made a decision. He wasn't just trying to get faster anymore. He was becoming the kind of creature who trained every day. Even when he didn't feel like it. Even when it was hard. And because of that shift in mindset, he stopped debating whether or not to train. He simply did it. And that's how he built momentum. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. Once you start something and do it consistently, it becomes easier to keep going. This is because of a principle called the Zeigarnik effect. Your brain hates leaving things unfinished. If you start a task, your mind will push you to complete it. This is why the hardest part of any goal is starting. But once you build momentum, stopping feels uncomfortable. Tortoise had finally reached that point. Skipping training no longer felt like an option. He had become the kind of creature who trained every day. And because of that, he never stopped. One evening, Monkey watched as Tortoise trained. "You're actually sticking with this," Monkey said, impressed. Tortoise nodded. "I finally figured it out." "Figured what out?" Monkey asked. Tortoise smiled. "Success isn't about waiting for motivation. It's about building a system that makes it easy to keep going." Monkey scratched his head. "A system," Tortoise explained. 1. Set a minimum goal. Instead of setting massive, overwhelming goals, set tiny ones. Example, instead of saying I'll train for an hour, say I'll train for 5 minutes. The key. Once you start, you'll usually keep going. 2. Remove friction. Make it as easy as possible to do the right thing. Example, if you want to work out, lay out your clothes the night before. If something is easy to start, you're more likely to do it. 3. Never skip twice. Missing one day won't ruin your progress. But missing 2 days in a row creates a habit of failure. Rule, if you miss a day, get back on track immediately. Monkey nodded. That actually makes sense. Tortoise grinned. That's because it works. Weeks passed. Tortoise kept training, day after day. And something incredible happened. He was actually getting faster. Not because he was pushing himself to the limit. Not because he was suddenly gifted with super speed. But because he had learned the real secret to success. Small, consistent actions, done every day, create massive results over time. Tortoise wasn't the fastest yet. But he was faster than he had ever been before. And that was all that mattered. Tortoise had cracked the code. He no longer relied on motivation. He no longer feared failure. He had built an unstoppable system for success. And now, Now he was ready for the real challenge. Because even with momentum, doubt will always creep back in. And when it does, most people quit. But Tortoise was about to learn how to push through failure and come back stronger than ever. But just imagine this. You're making progress. You've built momentum. You're feeling good. And then, something happened. A setback hits you out from nowhere. You miss a day. You fail an important test. You get rejected. You start doubting yourself again. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe this was a waste of time. Maybe I should just quit. Sound familiar? This is the moment that breaks most people. The moment when all their progress comes crashing down because they let self-doubt take over. But what if setbacks weren't the end? What if failure wasn't a reason to quit, but a reason to keep going? This is where Tortoise faces his biggest challenge. The battle against failure, self-doubt, and the temptation to give up. But what he learned next changed everything. Tortoise had been consistent for weeks. Every morning he trained. Every day he pushed himself just a little more. And it was working. For the first time he could feel his body moving faster. His steps were lighter. His confidence was growing. He had momentum. And then it happened. One morning, as Tortoise was practicing, he tripped over a rock and crashed hard onto the dirt. Pain shot through his legs. His shell scraped against the ground. For a moment he just lay there, staring up at the sky. The jungle was quiet. No one had seen it happen. But that didn't matter. Because in that moment doubt came flooding back. What if I never catch up to Hare? What if I've been wasting my time? What if I'm just meant to be slow? The thoughts were louder than they had ever been before. And for the first time since he had started, Tortoise felt like giving up. This is where most people stop. Not because they aren't capable. Not because they aren't good enough. But because failure makes them doubt themselves. Failure tricks you into thinking, this isn't for me. I'll never be good enough. Maybe I should try something else. And so they quit. Not because they had to, but because they let one mistake define their entire journey. But here's the truth. Failure is not the end. It's just part of the process. As Tortoise lay there, lost in his thoughts, he heard a familiar voice asked, "Giving up already?" Tortoise turned to see Owl perched on a low branch, watching him. Tortoise sighed. "I don't know if I can do this anymore." Owl tilted his head. "Why?" Tortoise hesitated. "Because I fell. Because maybe I was never meant to be fast." Owl chuckled. "Ah, you think falling is a sign you should quit?" Tortoise frowned. "Isn't it?" Owl shook his head. "Tell me, have you ever seen a baby bird learn to fly?" Tortoise blinked. "No." Owl smiled. "They don't get it right on the first try. They flap their wings. They fall. They try again. And again. Until one day, they don't fall anymore." Tortoise listened. "Falling isn't failure," Owl continued. "Quitting is." Tortoise sat up. "But what if I never get fast enough?" Owl nodded. "Then let me ask you this. Are you faster today than you were yesterday?" Tortoise thought about it and replied, "Yes." "Then you're already winning," Owl said. "Because success isn't about being perfect. It's about getting better. Every single day." Owl had just introduced Tortoise to something powerful, the growth mindset. A fixed mindset would always say, "I failed. That means I'm not good enough. I'm just not talented. I should give up." But a growth mindset would say, "I failed. That means I'm learning. I just need to keep practicing. Every mistake is making me better." The difference is this. A fixed mindset makes failure feel permanent, while a growth mindset makes failure feel like a progress. Tortoise had a choice. He could let this fall define him, or he could use it to become even stronger. Tortoise stood up. His legs ached. His shell was scratched, but he was still standing. He took a deep breath. Then, without thinking, he took a step forward. And then another. His body was sore, but he kept moving. 'Cause he wasn't just training anymore. He was proving to himself that failure wouldn't stop him. And in that moment something changed inside him. He no longer feared failure, because he knew that every mistake was making him stronger. As Tortoise trained that day, he realized that every successful animal in the jungle had faced failure before. But the difference is that they didn't let it stop them. Here's what he learned about overcoming self-doubt and setbacks. 1. Reframe failure as feedback. Instead of seeing failure as proof you're not good enough, see it as data. Every failure teaches you something. 2. Focus on your progress, not perfection. Stop comparing yourself to others. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday. 3. Build resilience through action. When you fail, don't stop. Keep moving. Action destroys doubt. 4. Remind yourself why you started. When things get tough, remember why you started this journey. That reason will keep you going. 5. Never miss 2 days in a row. If you slip up, get back on track immediately. Tortoise realized something powerful. The only way to truly fail is to quit. Days passed. Tortoise kept training. He stumbled sometimes. He got tired. But he never stopped. And then, one morning, something incredible happened. He moved faster than he ever had before. It wasn't a huge leap. It wasn't something dramatic. But he could feel it. He was no longer just a dreamer. He was becoming the animal he had always wanted to be. And that was the real victory. Tortoise had learned the most valuable lesson of all. Failure isn't something to fear, something to embrace. Because the path to success isn't straight. It's full of failures, setbacks, and self-doubt. But if you keep going anyway, you will win. And now, Tortoise was ready for the final test. The great race. The moment that will decide everything. The tortoise versus the hare. The slow versus the fast. But this time it won't be just about speed. It will be about persistence. Because in the end, the real question isn't who is the fastest. It's who refuses to quit. This is it. The final test. The moment where everything comes together. The jungle is watching. The race is about to begin. And standing at the starting line is Tortoise, the slowest creature in the forest. Next to him, Hare, the undefeated champion, the fastest animal in the jungle, the one who has never lost a race. On paper, this shouldn't even be a competition. But what if I told you this race isn't about speed? What if I told you that success isn't about who starts fast, but about who never stops? The sun was high in the sky. The jungle was buzzing with excitement. Animals had gathered from all over to watch the race. The one everyone thought would be over in seconds. Hare stood tall at the starting line, stretching his legs, smirking with confidence. Tortoise, on the other hand, took a deep breath. He wasn't here to prove anything to Hare. He was here to prove something to himself. Most people approach success like Hare. They start off fast and excited. They set ambitious goals. I'm going to work out every day. I'm going to start a business and make millions. I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. and be super productive. But after a few days they lose interest. They get distracted. And they stop. Because they don't have persistence. Hare was the perfect example of this. He was fast. But he wasn't consistent. Tortoise, on the other hand, had mastered the secret to success. Small steps. Daily improvement. Never quitting. And today he would be putting that lesson to a test. The signal was given. And just like everyone expected, Hare exploded off the starting line. Within seconds, he was gone, leaving a trail of dust behind him. The crowd cheered, already celebrating his victory. Meanwhile, Tortoise took his first step. Then another. And another. Slow, steady, and unshaken. The crowd laughed. This isn't even a competition, Monkey said. Hare looked back, saw Tortoise moving at his usual slow pace, and grinned. This is too easy, Hare thought. And so, after running halfway through the race, he decided to take a break. I've got time, Hare said, lounging under a tree. No need to rush. He closed his eyes. And soon he fell asleep. This is the mistake so many people make in life. They start strong. They build some momentum. And then they get comfortable. They tell themselves, "I've done enough. I deserve a break. I'll get back to it later." And that's how they lose. Hare believed he was so far ahead that he could afford to stop. But what he didn't realize is that success isn't about bursts of speed. It's about consistency. But as for the tortoise, he never stopped. He kept on moving forward, step by step. But then, the moment that changed everything came. The sun began to set. The crowd started murmuring, "Where's the hare? Wait, look." All eyes turned toward the horizon. And there, moving slowly but steadily, was Tortoise. The animals gasped. Hare was still asleep under the tree. Tortoise, the slowest creature in the jungle, is about to win the race. Just as Tortoise reached the finish line, Hare woke up. He looked around, panicked. But then he saw it. Tortoise, crawling just some few inches away into victory. Hare sprinted as fast as he could, pushing his legs to the limit. But it was already too late. With one final step, Tortoise crossed the finish line. The crowd went silent for a moment. And then they erupted into cheers. Because the impossible had just happened. Tortoise had won. Not because he was the fastest, but because he was the most persistent. This race wasn't just about Tortoise and the hare. It was about you. And the truth is, life is in this exact same way. Where most people start out fast but burn out quickly. They set big goals but give up when things gets tough. Therefore, the people who succeed aren't the ones who go too fast. They're the ones who show up every single day and keep taking small steps forward even when they don't feel like it. Don't quit when things get hard. Because success isn't about how fast you start. It's about how long you keep going. As the jungle celebrated, Monkey ran up to Tortoise. "I don't get it," Monkey said. "Hare was faster than you. How did you beat him?" Tortoise smiled. "I didn't focus on beating Hare," he said. "I focused on never stopping." And that's the lesson. It doesn't matter if you're not the fastest, the smartest, or the most talented. All that matters is that you keep moving forward. Because as long as you don't quit, you will win. Tortoise had done the impossible. But the truth is, anyone can do the same. Now the question is, will you? Will you commit to taking action every day, even when it's hard? Will you keep going even when you feel like quitting? Will you stop comparing yourself to others and just focus on your own progress? If you do, there is only going to be one possible outcome. You will succeed. Now it's your turn. Think about the goal you've been putting aside all this while. The dream you've been too scared to chase. That challenge you keep telling yourself you'll start tomorrow. And make a bold decision to start today. Not with a big leap. Not with some massive change. But with one small step. Because that's how you would build momentum. That's how you would overcome self-doubt. And that's how you would win just like the tortoise. And change your life for good. If this story inspired you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, success isn't about speed. It's about persistence. Like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more quality life lesson fable stories. Take your first step today because the race is yours to win.